You're listening to the Nightlight Radio Network. This is Dr. Zohara Hieronimus, co-host of 21st Century Radio. We are happy to present this rebroadcast of our show on Nightlight. Enjoy! Over the decades, we've been joined by amazing men and women who have followed a path that even to themselves was a mystery, as are most spiritual paths one advances on. Linda Tucker, a native South African woman, has written 2 books detailing her amazing journey, one entitled The Mystery of the White Lions, Children of the Sun God, a 2010 reprint by Hay House, and a North Atlantic 2013 release entitled Saving the White Lions. Following a sudden illness and near-death experience, the steps on Linda Tucker's path unfold. From Timbavati, Africa, it led her on an ancient trail of the white lion and what their reappearance in the world means. Linda joins us to continue our wonderful odyssey in learning about the white spirit animals of the world and to learn about her amazing and beautiful work in protecting the white lions of our world and the Global White Lion Trust she founded, which can be found www.whitelions.org. Thank you for joining us, Linda. Your book is wonderful, and I think your life is a beautiful example of following one's heart without knowing where it would lead.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to join you today. I've really been looking forward to this.
Tell us a little bit about your own youth in South Africa, because it places you really where your eventual spiritual journey took place.
Well, if you can think back to those times, South Africa during my youth was an apartheid system, an unjust system to humans. But then it was, it was superseded by Nelson Mandela's incredible walk to freedom, and he brought a whole new ethos when he was finally released in 1989, and that changed everything. I grew up in that context, and really the only way I could deal with it was to leave the country. Mm-hmm. I then returned when Nelson Mandela was inaugurated as president, which was 94, and that's when my real journey with the White Lions began.
It's so beautiful.
But I think it's, we'll go on to talk about this, I hope. I think the real tragedy is that whereas human rights was addressed in our country, what has happened since then is the same issue being played out with animals on a large scale, being treated as and abused as commodities and industrialized in a way that is so serious that if it continues, it's going to represent the end of ecosystems and life as we know it.
One of the things we've covered on our program over the years is the mass hunting of coyotes and elk and things that they call predators, lions, bears, tigers. I've covered all of these different animal situations, and that's the predicament we find worldwide, even with the horror of canned hunting camps. I know you've worked very industriously to stop that, and at least to protect the white lions from people being able to breed them for selling them in order just to kill them.
Yes, and perhaps we should remind our listeners of what canned hunting really is. If you can, this was actually a British term that was coined in 1997 by an investigative TV program called The Cook Report. They went out to South Africa and they discovered that endangered animals, particularly lions and particularly the sacred white lions, were being removed from the wild, put into cages where they were bred to be killed as captive trophies. So the term canned meant, industrialized lions in a can.
It's so extraordinary. And in this country, they kill the top species, the predator species, so that the hunters have bigger animals, like they kill the wolves so that there's more elk to shoot. So we've discussed this on other programs, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because I think that another aspect of your background was your own work in mythology and symbology. And it seems to be that you were able to use those skills as well when you first discovered the white lion. So before we get to that, in your memoir, you recount visiting home, and you were out in the bushveld with friends and others, and then your Jeep broke down.
Yes.
And then your extraordinary story begins.
Well, that is the turning point of my life. Picture I was in marketing and advertising at the time, so I was in, the glamour world, and but my love was in the African wilderness. That's where my heart was. So whenever I had a break, I would return to Africa and go out into the wilderness. And at that stage, because it was still apartheid South Africa, people didn't visit South Africa. It was prohibited. There were sanctions against the administration of the time. So these places were really, really, really wild, and the lions were not familiar with humans. So what happened on this particular night, it was the 10th of November, 1991. I remember, pitch dark night in the African wilderness, and a group of friends and I had gone out in this open-backed Jeep, very low to the ground, to go and see if we could find lions, because we'd heard them roaring in the distance. And very stupidly, actually, we went off-road, bouncing off-road, and we hit, our vehicle broke down because it hit a tree stump, and the steering shaft was bust. And at that moment, we suddenly discovered that we were surrounded by the pride of lions, 24 lions in all in that pride, and 5 pride males. Now, one of the males had his tail ripped off in a territorial fight, so gangrene was crawling up his tail and was killing him in the most agonizing way. So he was notorious for being aggressive, understandably. And we noticed in our spotlight that he was around and snarling and growling at us. And then suddenly, all the lions started making very sinister sounds, and our group panicked. And I don't know if you know, personal fear is one thing, but when a group starts to panic, it's like wildfire. It's the most terrifying feeling of being uncontrollably in a nightmare, your worst possible nightmare.
Mm-hmm. So, as your book recounts in Mystery of the White Lions, Children of the Sun God, there you all were planning an escape or staying put, and if you ran, you'd probably get attacked. But what happened is really the beginning of your introduction into lion shamanism, which eventually became a journey you made with excellent shamanistic teachers, a male and a female, who then gave you eventually the title of Lion Protector or Protector of the Lions. So tell us about this extraordinary woman called the Lion Queen, who actually appeared out of the darkness.
That was the turning point of my life. There was no way out of that terrifying situation, actually. And because people were behaving like prey, someone was going to be eaten that night.
Mm-hmm.
People were threatening to run, and lions are cats. They'd run after a mouse, and
right.
People were standing up screaming. So we were behaving like prey. And what was worse is that our flashlight was running out of battery. So what is worse, seeing someone consumed by a lion or just hearing the sounds in the darkness? Those were our options. We had no way out and no radio contact, and it was the days before cell phones, so that was it.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happened was this extraordinary encounter where an African woman in traditional dress came walking through the darkness on foot with a baby strapped to her back through the lions. And they became calm, and she came and climbed into our Jeep with us. And that was the turning point. It was like her carrying a flame of courage through the darkness, and she gave that to one man present who suddenly became courageous, and he said, well, you stay put, I will walk back through the lions and go and look for help, which he did. And he happened to be my sister's boyfriend at the time, and when he came back with help and another vehicle, she said, I'll marry you, and they're happily, they've lived happily ever after. But for me, the real hero of that incident was this woman who had heard us shouting, and she was an indigenous medicine woman and one of the last practitioners of an ancient shamanic training which links lion priesthood with the king of the animals.
So as you discovered when you then met this woman named Maria, who has since passed away, you became a student of hers, I guess one could put it, or a lineage holder eventually of what she was teaching, all the way from how to read throwing bones to making contact through telepathy and dreams. Talk to us a bit about your dreams, because you had recurring dreams about a lion.
Yes, and those were recurring dreams or nightmares from childhood. So they long predated this nightmarish experience that I've shared with you. And in essence, the dreams were the same, and they took this kind of form. I would be sleeping, and I thought that I woke up with a lion standing over me, roaring into my face. And I would scream, and it would roar into my face. And when I finally shared this recurring dream with Maria Corsa, who was now my teacher, she laughed scornfully at me. She wasn't sympathetic at all. And she said, as long as you scream at your lion guardian, he's going to roar in frustration at you. Mm-hmm. As soon as you stop screaming, he'll stop roaring and he'll walk by your side and become your spirit guardian, your protector.
So when you look at your life, and that's why I began the program by saying, when we follow our heart and we're courageous enough not to know where we're headed, that it's a mystery unto ourselves, you find these most magnificent arrivals, that people actually find their destiny if they can let go of the fear they have of not knowing, which you obviously did, because your background in symbology and mythology, and now your introduction to shamanism. Talk to us a bit about that shift of consciousness that went from, the material world is what we see, to the world as this multidimensionality that one can participate in very deliberately.
Yes, that's so well expressed. Well, that was the shift, and she turned my perspective around 360 degrees time and time again. So, I recognized after this wake-up call, or this near-death experience in the African bushveld, that the life I'd been living was trivial, superficial, meaningless. It all, was put into perspective. But, what she represented was so real, but so foreign as well. But she kept changing my perspective until I finally saw that what she represented was the truth. So, for instance, when I said to her, "How did you walk through the lions that night? You were going to get eaten." And she said, "There was no danger." And I said, "No, but you took your grandchild on your back and into the jaws of death." And she said, "Would I have taken my grandchild if there was any danger? These lions are my friends. They are lions of God. And I treat them with love and respect, and so there is no danger." And then she said to me, "Do you realize you and your rowdy friends were the aggressors? The lions circled your jeep because you were invading their space, and a lioness nearby was giving birth to cubs. In fact, it was a sacred birth. It was the last white lion cub born in Timbavati, 1991.
Extraordinary.
And you were barging into their space. So who was the aggressor? Now, how's that for seeing life differently?"
Mm-hmm. No, it's beautifully said. Look, we're going to take a little break, and then we'll be right back. If you're just joining us, our guest is Linda Tucker. We're discussing currently an older book of hers, Mystery of the White Lions, Children of the Sun God, and a new book I encourage you to get, Saving the White Lions, a North Atlantic 2013 release, and learn more about the White Lion Global Trust at www.whitelions.org. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Tim McGrady, and I'm General Manager of Spirit Bear Lodge in the remote rainforest of British Columbia. And you can learn more about us at www.spiritbear.com. You're listening to 21st Century Radio with Zohara Hieronimus.
Linda Tucker is our guest. Her beautiful book, I've read one of them, and I'm looking forward to the next one, a 2010 Hay House, Mystery of the White Lions, Children of the Sun God, and her newer 2013 book, North Atlantic, Saving the White Lions. We've been discussing how Linda's life from a rather materialistic, commercial life in London and elsewhere was changed dramatically when she went home, went into the wild with her friends, was surrounded by lions. A lion shaman, a priestess of the lions, came and basically saved them. And you have to listen to this story. So if you're just joining us, you can come find us online at 21st21st. centuryradio.com. So coming back then to your own journey, so you met Maria, the Lion Queen, and she subsequently became your teacher. If you could talk to us a little bit about shamanism in general, because you spend a lot of time showing that there's a difference between the lion priest, the lion shaman, the lion warrior, and another of your teachers who's very well known internationally, Credo Mutwa. I'm not sure I pronounced his name properly, but I've read his prophecies now and then. So tell us a bit about the shamanistic approach to life.
Yes, well, I think the easiest way to explain it when you're talking about lion shamanism is that there are two, well, let's put it this way. Lions are always associated with leadership. This is the king of animals, and that is the archetype. They are here. Their purpose is to show humanity what true leadership, lion-hearted leadership is about. But if you look through the tradition of humanity's history, there are really two forms of leadership that have taken place. The first, you could say, is the Hercules type of leadership. Remember, Hercules was the hero who felt that in order to be a macho man, he had to kill a lion, possibly even consume the heart, and then wear the skin of the lion. Now, that tradition has gone through history with a lot of, its end point is dictatorship and consuming of that which you want to be, instead of befriending or becoming that which you want to be. So the real tradition, the shaman tradition of lions is becoming the lion. And that is, you know, what is more courageous than becoming a lion? Let me just clarify it. The tradition of lion shamanism is closer to that story that many of us will remember from biblical times, the Androcles story, where, you know, a simple herdsman was wandering in the mountains, and he came to a cave where there was a lion. And instead of running away, he realized that this lion had a thorn in its paw. So he overcame his fear, went in, relieved the lion from the thorn, and of course this is an animal who could have killed him with one cuff to the face. But what happens with nature is when you serve nature lovingly, nature gives you much greater gifts than you could ever have given yourself. So what happened in the case of Androcles is that he was later captured by the Romans and thrown into the auditorium where he was made to fight against lions, and who should be put up against him but his friendly lion, who refused to harm him. And so, you know, he was freed as a slave, and he became, not only was he saved, but he became an important figure in Roman society. So those are the two traditions, really. The one is leadership that consumes, it's a power and ego-based leadership, that if that continues to be our model as humanity, you know, it's going to destroy our earth, because it's the whole consumer society is based on that kind of assumption that you can take, and not give anything back. And of course, that is going to destroy itself. But the other model, which is exhibited by lion shamans, is the one that honors and respects nature in the way that Maria Corsa did, but in the way that all of us can do without having to do kind of heroics in the wilderness. And that is the model that will take humanity through to the future.
No question about it. And this notion of conquest and domination, we see it in the environment, in medicine, in agriculture, in weather engineering, and obviously the animal kingdom is paying a price. And fortunately, there are people like you and others worldwide who are the voice for those that aren't given a voice at the table. And so when we look now at the white lions and the fact that you literally followed the trajectory of the Nilotic meridian, which is a very particular meridian on the planet, and it showed you that there was something very sacred about this longitude, and it eventually led you to the Sphinx in Egypt, to LA, interestingly enough. But talk to us a bit about that, because the white lions, as the shower of what it is to be brave leaders, and also the matrilinear culture. I mean, I find that the matrilinear culture of so many of these exquisite spirit animals, like the lion, is what we've lost as a humanity. So we have a brutal patriarchy, which is all about ego and selfishness, having sacrificed a matrilinear understanding of preservation and inheritance that goes down the mother's lineage. And the lions and lionesses certainly teach us this, and that the role of the lion himself is to protect the lioness and the cubs and to make sure that the territory is safe. It's not to kill. Even I think it's fascinating that the female lions are the ones that do the predominant hunting.
Yes. All of this is so fascinating, and it's all inbuilt as a way of lessons for humanity. And what you're alluding to is an extraordinary discovery that was shared with me by medicine people of Africa who still uphold the ancient Egyptian traditions in their knowledge systems. And what I discovered about the white lions is that they're a new occurrence. They are literally prophetic animals that have arrived in our day, having once occurred in ancient times at a time we could call a creation moment on Earth, that the ancient Egyptians clearly knew about and honored in their sacred monuments of the Sphinx and the pyramids. So you're alluding to the fact that this birthplace of the white lions is on one place only on Earth, a place called Timbavati. Simba, lion, Vati, to come down from the stars. It's a place that refers to the fact that these are sacred animals that are part of a star map that is being played out in our times, and they are messages, stellar, enlightened messengers, very urgently bringing a message for humanity, both a blessing and really a warning. This is one of the last warnings before ecosystems start collapsing. But the message is linked with our identity as leaders, and truly enlightened leaders at this time.
So when you talk about your own engagement with these extraordinary beings, and in the Hasidic or Kabbalistic tradition in Judaism, which I'm a student of, the animals are considered kaios, which that means the wild animals, and they're considered angels that are actually above the plane of action. And that's why telepathy is part of our inheritance when we choose to use it. So talk to us then what you have experienced by having this intimate relationship with these incredible bringers of wisdom as well as bringers of change.
Yes. Oh, where does one begin? I think probably one of the most compelling biographical details to share with everyone is that Maria Kosa was a prophet, and she could get messages from the lions, whether they were in physical form or spiritual form. And she prophesied that although these amazing animals were being brutally hunted and removed from their sacred lands, from the sacred site where they were born, God is stronger than anything nature can do to attempt to destroy creation. And so she said to me, "You are a student of symbolism. Make sure you don't miss the signs. There's going to be a sacred lion born in a place of great significance to humanity." And then sure enough, a few months after that, on Christmas Day in Bethlehem, which is a little place in South Africa, a white lion cub was born. Christmas Day in Bethlehem in the year 2000. And I realized from the shamanic teachers who I was working with that this was the lioness they were waiting for. And you mentioned the matriarchal lineage. It was a female lion born on those days. On those coordinates and at that day. And we had to return the queen of all lions to her kingdom. And I think that's significant because, the sacred lioness was female this time round to symbolize the sanctity of Mother Earth and all of creation.
And it's interesting in my study of the white bear, which also is connected with prophecy and reappearance at this time on Earth. It's an extraordinary community of spiritual beings who take animal form and who not only are in physical form, but as you point out, spiritual form, which makes them bringers of ancient as well as future knowledge, is that the bear also is matrilinear. And when one starts looking at these beautiful white spirit animals, one discovers that it is the female that passes on the knowledge and the wisdom. It's the male's job to do the protection. And when you look at our culture, African culture, and the mayhem there, how the women and children all around the world have been subjects of demonic destruction and enslavement, that actually the whole purpose of humanity is to protect the women and the children. It's not only is it spiritually proper, but it's logical.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating in lion behavior, particularly with the white lions who are spiritual beings, is that the protector, the male, will babysit the cubs. It's too adorable to see this powerful teddy bear male with the little cubs cuddled up next to him. So he could babysit the cubs at times when the females have to go out hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also read that the male will share his food with the cub, but not with the other lions until he and the cubs are finished.
There are incidents of that. Anything that is textbook gets thrown out the window when you live with lions, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us then a little bit more about your changeover when you started being able to make contact with the lions through dreams and through incubating dreams. How does dreaming help us open our hearts up to our higher selves and to the spiritual world that is contacting us?
Well, that is such a wonderful question. Thanks for asking it. After my intensive training, which really took more than 10 years with Maria Corsa, the Lion Queen, when she finally handed her mantle over to me, I realized that if I were to distill these principles into clear guidelines from the lions themselves, they really were the key principles of true leadership in humanity. And that's what I've subsequently done. So I now have a leadership academy, a White Lion Leadership Academy, that works with lion-hearted principles. I define the lion heart as that consciousness of fearlessness inspired by love and reverence of nature capable of changing our world. And when you have that consciousness, which all of us potentially can activate in our hearts, it's really a reawakening of the heart. That's what it is. And accessing that golden technology that lies within our hearts, that technology of love, light, and truth in its original form. Not the contaminated form that that our culture has worked with those concepts. But when you work with those technologies, you are capable of transforming your world, absolutely. However simple that environment is, your home life, your personal life, or your greater conservation environment.
Well, look, we're going to have to take another break. We'll come back to this because I know your leadership training is something our audience might want to take part in, and we'll talk about how they can do that. Don't go away if you're just joining us. My guest is Linda Tucker. She's written these two beautiful books, a 2010 Hay House release, Mystery of the White Lions, Children of the Sun God, and a 2013 North Atlantic release, Saving the White Lions. Learn more at www.whitelions.org.
Hi, this is Dawn Brunke, author of Dreaming with Polar Bears, Spirit Journeys with Animal Guides. To learn more about me and my books, you can visit www.animalvoices.net. And you are listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Zohara Hieronimus.
Welcome back to 21st Century Radio. I'm Dr. Zohara Hieronimus. Linda Tucker joins us, an amazing woman. She has accomplished so much for the white lions on our planet. And before the break, we were talking about her leadership program in South Africa that is based on what the white lions teach us. And lion-hearted shamanism, lion-hearted leadership is so important. So, Linda, talk to us a bit about your training institute and how our audience, if they have an interest, can participate.
Yes, well, it's an annual curriculum based in the heart of white lion ancestral territories. So you literally are living with the wild white lion prides in the same protected area. And, there are many leadership programs today specifically because humanity needs to redefine our concept of leadership. But working with the lion as the leadership archetype is profound because lions have always represented kingship and leadership and a specific type of leadership which is lion-hearted. So the training is an immersion in these laws which really are simple laws that you can apply to your world wherever you are, in changing it for the better.
Can you share a few of those themes with us? What are some of the ingredients of a lion-hearted leader?
Well, in essence, the definition of it I've shared before, but at the essence of it is this resilience that you have when you reawaken your heart and recognize that you're working with a golden technology, the heart of gold, that is the lion heart, that is capable of transforming anything you wish to transform for the better. And there are 12 laws of enactment. There's an embodiment of this lion heart and what that feels like to be joyous and to be engaged in your natural environment and to know that you're an effective agent of change, and you're resilient in the face of the challenges. And then the second process is enacting these 12 laws in your environment. So if we were to look just at one of the laws, you refer to dreams and the importance of dreams in our lives. Well, the ninth law is co-creation, and that allows for the fact that you are not a lone agent. You can engage with your environment at any point in a co-creative way because you're aware that this is the work of the Creator. And that allows you the possibility, it allows you endless possibilities of changing your world when you know how to work with that law. So when you dream, for instance, you can take dream knowledge back into three-dimensional reality and change your environment. That's part of the training. And we do it in white lion territory. So we literally get messages from the lions that we then take up and apply to the 21st century. We join leading edge technologies with the ancient technologies of shamanism and show that the two must work together if we're going to effectively create a future for humanity.
And of course the white lions, like the white bear and the white buffalo and these other white spirit animals that are showing up on Earth, and there are heroes and heroines in the human form trying to protect them and give them protective, unfortunately, almost range custody. It's like it's a shame that to protect animals, we have to keep humans out now. And when you look forward, our moving in, you and I spoke off air for a moment, you talked about the moving into the Leo Aquarius age. So share this with us.
Well, I'm sure that our listeners are aware of the great ages of man. It's a great astrological calendar of 26,000 years or more that is turning in our time, as well as the Mayan calendar and the Egyptian calendar and all the calendars that are coming to a fulcrum in our time. But we are at the turning of ages right now. And it's not only the Aquarius age that we're going into, it's actually the Leo Aquarius age, because you need to look at the opposite axis against the zodiac in relation to the Earth. So that's significant that the white lions have suddenly reappeared as precursors to this massive new epoch that is turning in our day.
So the white lions that you have become the protector of, and Maria certainly taught you that, and other shamans who worked with you and have taught you. Talk to us about the Global White Lion Protection Trust.
Well, the first thing I had to do was to get real with this knowledge and recognize that the lions were in dire crisis. They were being forcibly removed from their sacred lands. They were being hunted in those lands, but worse, they were put into cages and treated as commodities, like we were saying. The worst of this is that the baby cubs would be and are being farmed out to be handled by tourists because they're so adorable. And then those same cubs are later put into cages and shot as trophies, as if you can treat the king of all animals, these luminaries, as if it's a mere commodity. And this is, unfortunately, whereas I was opposing this 20 years ago, and it was a mafia industry, clandestine industry, I did suffer from death threats at that time. And I tried my best, presented in Parliament to shut this down. Unfortunately, now it's a massive industry with vested interests at top levels, and that includes trophy hunting syndicates out of Las Vegas. So the crisis is much worse than it's ever been before, but the solution is much closer to us than it's ever been before. And I say that because the public en masse has become involved, whereas I was a lone voice 20 years ago. Last year at this time, we mounted a global march around the world. 62 cities marched for lions, and that included Los Angeles, Washington, New York, London, Paris, Jerusalem, everywhere. We all marched at the same time for lions, and we amassed 1.5 million signatures demanding the prohibition of this atrocious industry. So, mass consciousness is available to us now, and it's very exciting to work at this level. So this is an appeal to our audience to recognize that each of us can be effective in making change, and I'd like to discuss other ways in which people can participate if they'd like to.
Yes, please do.
Well, one way, if this material appeals to you at a heart level, recognize there's a heart and a soul connection with these animals that can be deeply uncovered if you visit White Lion territories. It's not open to the public because we really need to protect the white lions in their sacred heritage lands, but we do open up for specific purposes to like-minded people. Mm-hmm. So annually we have the Leadership Academy, and you can go online to whitelions.org and see what that's about. And that's an intensive training, leadership training of lion-heartedness, as I've described. But there are also pilgrimages to White Lion territories that you can take for a shorter period. The leadership training is a month-long immersion into this into the field of the white lions and what they represent for humanity. But you might wish to take a short journey, a spiritual journey to White Lion territories, and that would be a week-long journey, which is available at various times during the year. Or you can even volunteer on our project on the ground. It's a real living conservation community-based project on the ground, which you can join for a period of time and become part of our team.
How beautiful. And again, you can go to www.whitelions.org if you haven't written that down so far. One of the things you point to, and I found it fascinating because I'm a student of the as above, so below, as within, so without, which is pretty much the I think the golden mean of all shamanistic traditions, all indigenous peoples, all esoteric lineages worldwide. And both the planet Sirius, the Pleiades, the star system, and the star system of Orion in particular, often crop up when one starts researching lions and where they come from. Have you, in your experience, come to a sense of where the white lion in particular derives from?
Absolutely, yes. That has been shared with me through the wisdom keepers of the great African tradition, who are of the same lineage as the ancient Egyptians. And it is linked with Orion, particularly the belt star of Orion. There's three main coordinates. It's Orion, the belt star, and then it's the Leo constellation, the heart star, Regulus, and finally it is Sirius, which is the mother of all the stars. So Sirius gave birth to the sun and the constellations of the solar system. And so the white lions are directly linked with the source, Sirius, and the moments of activation when the sun touches Sirius or touches the heart star of the lion or the belt of Orion.
And it's so interesting. I mentioned to you off air, and I've shared it with the audience, that we used to have our longitudinal meridians calculated by those 3 stars of Orion, and they point to our galactic center. So we've lost that because it moved to Greenwich Meridian. It threw off our consciousness from understanding our relationship to our ancient history and our off-planet elders, as well as our own cosmology within our bodies. We don't have much time left, and I want to be sure to give you an opportunity to talk about how the lions have changed you and what they've brought to your own life and the way you live your life.
Oh, well, all I can say is they've brought an incredible sense of love, so deep that it is as great as any mother love can be. You know, I've specifically chosen not to have children in this lifetime because of this work is so intensive. But the lions are my family, and the love I feel for them is indescribable. It's what motivates me in the face of incredible odds, and tragedies as well as triumphs.
And in your story, you mentioned some of those, like you had a lion that had been named yours, a wild lion, and it was subsequently killed. And I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, all of us can relate to what it is when we lose a dog or a cat or a parrot, and when we have these affiliations that are from our soul that go back lifetimes. I mean, I think that's the thing that I want to be sure we touch on, is that these journeys we make, you as a protector of lions, sort of like the lion queen who taught you, that this isn't your first life, taking care of the lions.
That's truly become clear to me, and in my dreams I have recall and past life recall of working with white lions, you know, in ancient Egyptian times, walking with them, you know, living with them. Those were the times when they were in the temples, but the desecration of those sacred pacts now is this kind of public access to these sacred animals, but treating them as if they can be, as if they literally are commodities. And so, you know, it's the pain of memory of what the true contract was with these luminaries, and what they are going through now in an attempt to wake humanity up to our spiritual our spiritual identities.
I want to thank you for all that you do on behalf of humanity, because we are at a sacred juncture of choosing, do we want to have a great deal of suffering, or do we want to preserve life with a great deal of joy?
Yes, that is so beautifully put, and the lions offer that option to us, that joyfulness of true lion-heartedness, and the incredible pain of witnessing the destruction that we have created, but that we are infinitely capable of changing at this moment.
Amen to that. Everybody read Linda Tucker's magnificent book, Saving the White Lions and Mystery of the White Lions. And if you forget the links, you can find them at 21st21stcenturyradio.com. 21st Century Radio is produced by Hieronimus and Company. Our executive producer and research assistant is Laura Kortner. Our engineer is Noah Dankner. I'm Dr. Zohara Hieronimus, and we hope you enjoyed the show.